I've never had a debate quite like this. I finally presented this in a way that Brian Shapiro was forced to contend with it. There's no disputing this. He's going out of his way not to acknowledge clear logic.
I'm specifically giving you direct quotes from Charlie Kirk, why I think he was a bad guy. He was a racist.
It's something to behold. I have never experienced it at this level before, as you're going to see in this debate.
When you try and force through an outcome like that, there's only two potential courses to do it. We use the firefighter example. Okay, purple firefighters have been oppressed. We need, for whatever reason, we want more females, whatever it is, we're going to call it purple.
And 8 purple people become firefighters. You say, nope, we need at least 25. Okay, explain to me, how are you going to do that without lowering the standards or pushing people through that would not otherwise make it through the process, which is lowering the standards?
Then hold on a second. Then give me an example. If you think that in theory, this could lead to flawed outcomes, there's plenty of black pilots out there.
I just gave you how the logic is the evidence.
Firefighters. I'm not talking. Okay.
Okay. Switched out firefighter with pilot, Brian.
Okay. Give me an example then of a
that is the example.
No.
You want me to point to a pilot that was hired?
If you're claiming that people were hired that shouldn't have been there, and here's why you make that claim, because maybe we had a plane
I'm not making that. I'm saying if you implement this policy, logically, there's no other way around this. Can you
policy? They have implemented the policy for years. I'm asking you for.
Okay, can you break down the policy for me as you understand it?
And you give me one example of how this is flawed and how somebody that was hired that wasn't qualified. Give me one example.
So you want me to point to a name of a pilot?
I want you to give me an example of them hiring somebody.
How could I provide you more of an example than what I've just provided you? Can you explain the policy to me?
No, hold on. You haven't given me one specific example. We are talking about
meaning a pilot as a specific example.
We're talking about Charlie Kirk's statement about, I hope he's qualified, making a reference to they might have hired a black pilot.
He was trying to articulate the same logic that I just laid out for you.
When people perceive that standards are being lowered because you're pushing for a specific model, that will cause them to question the qualifications. That is what Charlie Kirk was saying.
Okay, for years you guys have been talking about this. So I'm asking you for one specific example.
You're asking me to name a pilot, essentially, which is not possible to do.
I'm asking you to name a circumstance. You don't even have to name.
That is the circumstance, Brian.
An example where people died or people were harmed because they hired somebody that wasn't qualified.
So you want me? So wait a minute. So the logic. So my logic is flawed unless I can provide you an example of the purple firefighters failing to save a house.
The lowering of the standards is the example. This can be applied to any process. It does not have to be firefighters.
Unless we have examples of the failed outcome, we are unable to see how the logic shows this is a very bad idea. That's what you're saying?
If you want to say that hiring black pilots is a bad idea. I never
said that. Okay. A black person can apply to be a pilot and let the best, most qualified people become pilots.
Warren, I understand that.
Why do I need to provide you with the name of a pilot in order to lay out the logical model?
Of all the pilots in this country, you can't name me.
What do I know about examples of airplanes crashing? Why do I need to provide that in order for you to contend with what I just laid out?
I'm so glad you asked that, Warren. I'm going to answer your question. I think it's a very important one. When you are going to make a claim that if you see a black pilot, maybe there might be some reason to be worried if that pilot is qualified. When you're going to say something like that, the initial response to that would be, well, why would you be worried? Can you provide me any evidence? No, you didn't. You can't name me one example. Warren, let me start over. You can't name me one. Hold on. This is important because you talk about logic. This is the purest of logic, Warren. If you can't name me one example, let me give you some examples, Warren, that I think you might understand. I can give you, when I complain about ICE, Warren, right? And I complain that the 47 days of training or 47 hours of training or whatever it is these days, who knows? Let's just say 47 days of training. And I make the argument, they're not getting trained enough. They're not good with de-escalation techniques. And then he would say, can you give me an example?
No, perfect.
Hold on.
And this is where he walks into the checkmate.
Brian, do you see why it would also, using your example, why it would be so important for you early on, even as the implementation of ICE is being discussed, how it would be important for you to be able to rise your logical points and say, hey, this is a bad idea. This eventually has a high likelihood of leading to catastrophe.
I didn't say, hold on, stop.
Let me just finish. You don't need
Warren,
the examples to make that point.
Yes, you do.
I'm saying that. Brian.
Yes, you do. Yes,
so
you do.
I can't say, hey, not having enough training for ICE is a bad idea logically, unless I can point to someone ICE has killed. That's what you're saying.
Okay, so the difference is, Warren, I just gave examples of rogue ICE agents that should have never been hired.
Can you contend with what I'm saying, Brian? Do you see why it's important that we be able to examine the logic in order to anticipate what can occur?
Can you examine the logic and actually, when you make a claim that there might be some black pilots that are not qualified to some white pilots, can you give me actual example? You can't, but this conversation continued and you continued to analyze it. So I want to get through this video.
You're just going to dump out of the conversation? Like, this is important, man.
Dump out of the conversation?
Yes, you're just dumping out of the conversation and moving on. Yes, this is really important. Brian, if you try and force through outcomes, if you try and force through police without enough training, any flawed process logically, it's important we're able to point to that and say, hey, this is a bad idea. Okay, and then the person you're trying to talk to responds and say, hey, we don't have any examples of it going bad.
Exactly.
That's what you're doing. Can you see that?
No. What you're doing is
you're trying to say,
no, what you can't see is you're trying to make an example of this is bad, and you can't give me any specific examples of why it's bad when it comes to black pilots.
Yes, I'm saying this is bad, even if I can't point to a plane crashing. Can we agree that if you lower the standards for a pilot, that would be negative?
No evidence that pilots are doing that. No evidence.
Can we just agree that that would be negative?
No evidence.
Can you at least just meet me and agree that if we... Okay, Brian, this isn't about, let's say it hasn't even happened. Let's say it's not, but can we agree if we were to lower the standards for pilots, that would be a negative?
I would have to look at the specifics on
you can't even engage with that logic.
It's not, because it doesn't pertain to black pilots. That's the point I'm going to repeat myself.
I'm not talking about black pilots.
I am. That's what Charlie Kirk was talking about. That's why we're talking about this, Warren. We're not talking about other black people that are hired in other agencies. I'm specifically giving you direct quotes from Charlie Kirk, why I think he was a bad guy. He was a racist.
The logic is clear. This is not an opinion. I don't know how to make it any more clear. So it's gotten to a point now that he is intentionally, you have to put in great effort in order not to understand what I'm saying here.
I can explain thoroughly why it's bad.
Let's not just talk about planes crashing.
You don't get it?
Let's talk. No, I don't.
I feel like you're willfully just trying not to listen to what I'm saying. And this is where it starts to approach a lie.
No, it's not a lie. I think you're willfully not approaching.
You don't. What part? Can you just tell me what part doesn't make sense?
There is no. Well, I think almost everything you say doesn't make sense, but there is zero evidence that any black pilots that were hired do not do their job properly and were hired.
That, Brian.
False. That is the whole effing argument.
No, it's not. If you try and force through specific outcomes. It is
the whole damn argument. Okay, you can talk to me about your
explain
logic.
the argument again. I want to figure out where it's breaking down for you. Human beings can use logic to examine flawed processes before disaster occurs.
All right. So we're going to.
Is there anything wrong about what I just said?
Yeah, I think there's a lot.
We just used ICE as an example, and how it would be important to be able to point to ICE and say we shouldn't do this, even if no one has been shot yet.
Warren,
we just keep repeating this over and over.
I've answered your question, Warren. I know you think black pilots are bad. I understand that, Warren. So now,
when did I say that, man? And like, by your logic, I would point to you and claim you're lying, Brian. But it doesn't apply to you, it seems. When have I ever said that? Would you like to retract that and apologize?
Do you think black pilots are bad, Warren?
Do I think black pilots are bad?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
I think black people can be pilots just as much as anyone else.
Got you. Do you think you should be worried when you get on a plane and you see a black pilot? Should you be worried?
If this policy is implemented and people are addressing it with the cognitive dissonance that you're displaying here, I would be concerned.
What policy is implemented?
If we are going to force through outcomes, and there's only logical way to achieve that specific outcome would be to change standards.
Okay, I get you.
That would be bad.
what policy when it comes to black pilots has been implemented?
If we're implementing DEI, if that's what you're calling for with DEI is that if I'm wrong about what DEI is, please articulate what it is. I don't even know anything about airlines. That's why I use the hypothetical about firefighters, because this can be applied to any process where the stakes are high. This isn't about my knowledge of airlines. I don't know about airlines.
You're not answering my question. I think you're lying, Warren. Let me try this one more time. And if you don't know, then just say you don't know. What is the...
I just said I don't know about airlines, Brian, but I can contend with this logic. The logic seems pretty clear.
Okay. So if you get on a plane, maybe we should be worried if there are black pilots. If you don't know any of the hiring...
I thought DEI was rolled back, so I don't particularly worry. Is it? I don't know about airlines. Has it been rolled back or not?
So Warren,
so you don't know either?
No, I do.
Okay, has it been rolled back or not?
I absolutely know that in certain circumstances, there's no while they look to hire minorities and they're doing a better job of doing so, there is nothing in their hiring policies that says we're going to hire people that are less qualified.
Okay, then DEI is not being implemented in airlines. If you're talking about what you're describing is just advertising. If you're just looking to hire more black people, that's just advertising.